A very good evening and welcome once again to Terrace Talk. And, our main focus tonight is looking back at the weekend where Kerry met Dublin in the All-Ireland final, trying to stop Dublin's drive for 5. But unfortunately, we came up a bit short on the day. But it's been a massive journey throughout all this season for Kerry, taking us to an All-Ireland final with a very, like Donal Barry is in studio tonight, a youthful team. And I'm delighted to have Liam Brosnan, John Kennedy, Denny Long and Donal Barry as we look back on the weekend's action. Of course, later on we'll be chatting about the GA's recommendation of a second tier. Of course, that is to be voted in October, and what do the third and fourth division teams think of this? And hopefully we'll be speaking to the Carlow senior footballer, that's Benny Kavanaugh. He's made over 100 appearances with Carlow. And of course, the All-Ireland senior football final replay, we'll be looking at speaking to Donny Mahoney tonight. Of course, he's writing a book about the column The Gooch Cooper, and that's later on in the programme. Of course, he's part of the team and co-founder of balls.ie. So if you have any comments to make to us tonight, I'm sure that there was a lot of people. There was a huge Kerry contingent at this game. It was great to see the green and gold in Jones's Road in huge numbers as we waited to see what would happen for that 6 p.m. start on Saturday. If you have any views, a lot of negative stuff has come out about the 6 p.m. start. It's our All-Ireland football final. Of course, we have two national games, hurling and football, and we decided to put it on at 6 o'clock on a Saturday evening. Didn't suit a lot of people, and probably didn't suit Kerry players either. I take it was a long day on Saturday waiting for that throw-in, and I don't think, I suppose if I can give my own personal opinion, I reckon it deserves more respect than that. And also, if there was anything inside those white lines or outside those white lines that you witnessed over the weekend, please do not hesitate in contacting us tonight. You can call us on 066 712 3666, text on 083 300 3300, also on WhatsApp, Terrace Talk on Facebook, or tweet at Terrace Talk RK, Terrace Talk at radiokerry.ie. Liam Brosnan, you arrived back and you seem to be fairly solid after your weekend.
Yeah, Tim, look, I suppose Saturday evening, I suppose around 11 o'clock, alright, we were a bit down, but look, I suppose we sat here at the start of the year and our expectations weren't too high. I always said, since we got to the Ireland semi-final, that from there on was a bonus. I'll hold my hand up if you ask me to start of the year that we get to I would get to a National League final and a Munster final, win a Munster final and get to an Ireland final. I wouldn't have believed it. So I do think that, look, the Kerry management and the Kerry players deserve a lot of credit. They've given us a wonderful year up and down the country. The amount of young fellas and a couple of older fellas thrown in as well. Look at the excitement and the enjoyment and the football that they played. It kind of brought a bit of a fresh air to Kerry, and there was a great buzz around the place all year following this Kerry team, and I think it proved it yesterday at the homecoming. I was inside with my small ones as well, and there was a fantastic crowd there. And you could see, and the boys around the table will tell you there, when you lose a big game like that, it's not an easy place to be up on a stage. People telling you'll be back next year. They're after putting their life on hold with the last 12 months. They're after putting in a serious effort, and I know everyone was telling Dublin we're going to win it, but I can guarantee you the fellas up on that stage and management, they went out to win. They knew that they could win that. So it wasn't a case of we'll be back next year. So they are disappointed, and they can hold their heads up high because they have given us a fantastic year, and I've no doubt about it. Look, we will be back. It's not as easy as what people say. We have a young team. There's a lot of work to be done. I was listening to a good interview on the way up on Saturday. My brother Connor had it in podcast about Mark O'Shea, and it just summed it up for me on the way down when I was thinking about it. Mark was going back to the early noughties when he played Armagh, and he was marking the as Marsden. And the one thing that stood out, he was telling the story, he was only 11 stone, and he said he found it hard. He said 2 years later he was 13 stone. So you look at Tom Sullivan yesterday, and you look at the Gavin Whites and all these fellas, give them another year or two, and you could see yesterday on Saturday, size-wise, strength-wise, experience-wise, they were that little bit ahead of us. So I have no doubt, like, the management are probably, I know they'll take a week or two off, but I'm sure Peter Keane's head is getting ready for next year already in the management. So I do think, look, there's a great road ahead of us, but it's not going to be an easy road. It's going to be a hard road, but at least we have something to look forward to now, Tim.
John, I know we're going to go into detail from the outset of the game, from team selection and what have you, but there's some things that have come through right throughout the day here to us on Terrace Talk, and I just want to clear up a few points rather than, they dominate in our programme tonight. But can I speak about Tommy Walsh? Tommy Walsh, the big talking point during the week was, would he start? What time would he come on? And the questions relate to that we should have brought him on earlier. A yes or no answer.
There's no doubt, Tim. We should have. And it's
not hindsight now.
I just started Tommy Walsh, Tim. I think that he's the one player that could disrupt that Dublin defence. I feel they're suspect, and try to give him room for the likes of Paul Ganey and David Clifford, who had very good games the last day. But Tommy's aerial ability, his strength, his ability to bring others into it, and we saw when he came on, he was ready to go. He won the first ball. He got a foul. But look, you live by the sword and you die by the sword, Tim. I'm afraid that the selectors made a decision, the management made a decision. They got a lot of things right. I feel that was one that we could have fought Dublin. They are vulnerable in the full back line, and it was too late when he came in.
Yeah, definitely so. And with that, I should have a former Kerry star, former Kerry captain on the line, the Glenbeigh Carman himself, Darran O'Sullivan. Good evening, Darran.
Hi Tim, how are things?
Not too bad, I suppose. A bit disappointed, but we have to add weight to things, what have happened. What's your take on, is there still a gap? I suppose that my direct question to you this evening, Darran, is there still a gap between Kerry and Dublin?
Yeah, look, I don't think you're going to close that gap in a year. I think the strides Kerry made this year have been massive. I think they're bigger than anyone could have expected, really, if you're being realistic at the start of the year. I just think coming away, obviously, the natural feeling is disappointment because we were so close. But I think when you put things into perspective, I just think that the year that the boys have had, the progress they've made steadily throughout the year, you can only be positive. Obviously, it's disappointing at the moment, but I'm trying to look at the bigger picture, and I just think, look, the future is bright for a lot of these lads, and it was a massive learning curve. They learned an awful lot this year, and they're only going to get better.
Darran, when we say there's a gap between us, I suppose you can call it tactics, I suppose, as part of that, the experience of Jim Gavin, because we've a relatively new senior manager as well, Peter Keane, and plus the fact that our guys will have to, I suppose, get a bit of bulk. Strength and conditioning is a huge part of our setup.
Oh yeah, but you look at the development of, let's say, Shawnee now or David, who have been in the last 2 years. They've developed massively. Conor Callahan obviously came of age this year. He's been there 3 or 4 years now at this stage, so that takes time. That's not just one season and you're doing weight, so obviously you're bigger and stronger. You have to develop that. So the boys will be getting onto different programs as the years go on, and they'll start finding themselves and they'll start maturing as men as well. A lot of the lads in there are very young. They're obviously doing strength and conditioning the last few years, but it's going to be ramped up now, and obviously it takes a year, 2 years, 3 years to get to that stage. You can't just go in and go from 10 or 20% up to 100%. It takes a bit of time. And in terms of tactics and stuff, I think Dublin have had that structure going, and they've perfected it over the last couple of years. It takes time. It's the same in every sport. I think you look at even soccer now, and people rave about Liverpool. It takes time to get to that standard, and Dublin, it's taken them time, and they've perfected it. They have little tweaks here and there, and that's what Kerry will be trying to do. They'll be trying to find a structure that suits them and suits the players that they have best. Now it's just a matter of fine-tuning it and trying to perfect it as best you can.
Darran, do we have to find more players? Our county championship is coming up this coming weekend, which I'm sure it'll be a huge interest to the GA follower in Kerry. You want to add to your panel the whole time? Yeah, look, I think that's important. You have to be adding 1 or 2 players every year, but sometimes it doesn't always work out that way. A good county championship player sometimes isn't the best inter-county player, and I think it's about finding the right type of players, but the right type of people as well to get into a dressing room. There's a good group inside that dressing room at the moment. They all get on with each other, so I think that's important. So it's about finding fellas who are obviously good footballers, but they want to give it all for Kerry. I think that's the big thing. There's no point being a good footballer if you can't put Kerry first, and that's what it's about. When you do get into that dressing room, it has to be your main goal. And I think for the young lads around Kerry who've seen the minor success over the last few years and maybe seen Kerry getting close, not close enough in the seniors, if they want to push on, they'll go a long way. But I think when you go into that dressing room, it's fine to be a good footballer and a good athlete,
Kerry has to come to number one after that. And I think if you get one or two fellas to add to the current group that we have, we'll be in a good place.
Darren, the big talk this morning as well about David Moore, and we know he's carrying an injury with the last couple of years. He seems to have a problem with his knee, which it didn't detract from his performance right throughout the championship. Will David Moore stay on with Kerry?
Only David Moore can answer that. I'd be hoping he would. I think David's the type of fella, he just gives everything, whether it's a 15-minute game in training or the All-Ireland final. David will keep going until the body can go no more. I'd be hopeful he'd stay on, but look, David's been around a long time. He's had a couple of injuries. Lesser men would have pulled the plug, but he's a certain type of character that don't come around too often, that is just incredibly driven. And he's the type of fella now that the young lads will be looking up to. They should be looking at him and saying what he can put his body through it. Even when he is not left in the tank, he'll always find that extra something just to get the last run. So like that, I'd be hoping David, because you just need as many experienced guys and as many guys like David around the place, and there's not too many around. So I think it'd be important for this young team to have David on for another year. But only David can answer his fans. But I'd be hopeful that David will be there for another year or two.
And I suppose a similar question, a question that has parallels with it. Tommy Walsh didn't have the game time that other players had during the championship. It's very important that Tommy Walsh stays with this outfit. Yeah, well, I suppose Tommy had a break away from the Kerry setup for a couple of years. And like that, look, you just never know when fellas hit 29, 30, 31 years of age. I suppose other things take over in your life, like career and family and stuff like that. So you never know, like, what fellas' plans are going forward. Obviously, if Tommy can stay involved, it'll be great for Kerry. I think he's only just found his feet again at inter-county level again. I suppose it takes a while to get back into it. And I think we all saw the impact he can make. Like, at the end of the day, he was out of it for a while. It was his first year back. It was never just going to be throw him straight in there and it's all easy, plain sailing. It took him a while to find his place again. I genuinely would love to see him back in there next year, for the sheer fact I think if fellas could get used to the idea of an early ball in and actually running off him and getting him into dangerous areas, he could be unmarkable. I don't think he's an aerial bombardment. He's not a Donaghy. He's very different. It's measured ball. I think if fellas can get used to playing with him again and get that as part of their game plan, we can get a lot out of him.
An awful lot. I was delighted with him during the league, and I actually genuinely thought he'd be even better in championship with players buzzing off him. Because the first thing I thought was he's going to be great to play with Tommy again, because he's not selfish. He is very aware of everything going around him, and he is very quick to ship off the pass and not be looking for individual scores.
Great stuff, Darren. I had a text in here from a St. Kieran's supporter. What position are you lining out next Saturday evening against St. Kieran's? Are you on the 40? Are you wing forward?
I'm not sure I'm playing yet. Very busy at the moment.
I believe you. We all believe you out this district. We look forward to seeing you. It's great to see you still playing ball, and I'm sure you'll line out with Mid Kerry against St. Kieran's the weekend. Darren, thanks a million for coming on Terrace Talk this evening.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Of course, that's the great Darran O'Sullivan. What a speed merchant he was. He still is. I wouldn't like to be marking him. Of course, former Kerry captain as well. We take our first break of the evening. You're very welcome back here to Terrace Talk. I have Liam Brosnan, John Kennedy, Denny Long and Donal Barry in studio as we chat about the weekend All-Ireland Senior Football Final replay. And those comments coming through to us. Great year for the Kerry team and Peter Keane. He must get 2 or 3 more players from the junior Kerry team, and that comes from Jerry in Rathmore. I get the impression that Donny Buckley is running the show on the Kerry camp. Is that a good thing, considering that he has lost to Dublin 8 times as a coach in championship? And that comes from James Barry in Fireys. Everyone is talking about the Kerry's young team, but if you look at Dublin, apart from Cluxton, all in their mid-20s, they'll be around for another bit, and that comes from John in Cork. Hi Tim, it was disappointing, but Kerry put up a powerful Dublin team on both days and have given us a great year. They have made great progress this year and will go on to things better, and that our day will come, and that comes from Charles. Denny Long, I'm just trying to get little points here, because we had a number of comments on each today coming into Terrace Talk. The referee, Something was noted by a number of supporters, probably sitting behind the substitute, where the substitutes are situated in the Hogan stand, said that Jim Gavin at times was speaking to one of the officials on the sideline, be it the fourth official or whatever, and likewise going in before half time, having a word in his ear about something that he wasn't happy out on the pitch. Does that message go back to the referee, do you think?
Well, I presume it does, Tim, because, he's one of the officials for the day. He obviously goes into the same dressing room as the referee and the umpires and the other officials. So I presume they do. Now, we're not privy to what Jim Gavin was saying to the linesman, but it did appear that he was talking to him quite a lot.
He wasn't wishing him happy Christmas anyway.
Well, obviously it had something to do with the game and incidents in the game or whatever. Now, we could assume that he was talking about 100 things, but we don't know.
But why I bring up this point is Alex Ferguson and, Man United, he was always in officials' ears in the sense that if he wasn't happy with something, he tried to relate back. Is it part of the gamesmanship of football?
I think we've said here several times, if you can get the slightest advantage, you'll take it. And that's what it's about today. Managers, the people up in the stand, the people giving advice to Peter Keane or Jim Gavin, whoever, if they see another small opportunity that will gain them some little advantage during the course of that game, that's what's happening. Now, I don't like to see it happening, a manager or a selector interfering, if you like, with an official. The official is there to do his job. He's in there, he's wired up to the referee and so on. So I think it's not a good thing. I think there are quite a number of things happening now within the rules of the GA outside the white lines that they have to look at.
And they have no control probably at the minute.
Correct.
Because of the rules.
Yeah.
And Denny, speaking of the referee, how would you rate your county man's performance?
I thought he was okay. There was things he left go.
And that's another point that came through. Fair enough. That hurt that goal in the first 10, 11 seconds.
Well,
there was a number of steps there, but we can go back to the Killian Spillane one the week before then, and we needn't have any complaints.
Correct. But I'm always saying, if it's a foul, if there's a foul committed by a player, whether he's on the Kerry side or the Dublin side, of course, the referee can get them all right. But there was quite blatant fouls the last day that he missed. Now, somebody said, I can't say for sure, that he put up his hand for the advantage when, what's his name, was on through.
Was it?
And, yeah. And other people said he didn't put up his hand. So where do you go? Now, if he put up his hand and he takes 3 or 4, 5 more steps, I presume
the advantage is over then.
Well, that's what I think.
Donal Barry, the other point this will be my last one getting out of the way before we go into the detail of the game itself, but these are ones that have been accumulating all afternoon. Paul Murphy in that so-called sweeper role.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose in fairness to Paul Murphy, he's one of the best man markers we have. He's at a stage now where he's a lot more experienced than some of the other players inside the full back line. And I suppose, we've got ourselves into a system now where we tend to play the sweeper, but there's so many different sweeper roles. He just doesn't seem to fit the game that we're playing, and that's not taken for 1 second saying that he's not capable of doing. But to play that role, you need experience, and he's only in that role 3 or 4 games. The teams he's played in that role, Donegal, Tyrone, Dublin, they're not easy teams to learn the role on your feet, and it tends to be a role that you don't learn in the league, because in the league, players aren't up to the same standard of pace or speed or tactical awareness, the whole lot.
Another question: do we need a sweeper?
I think in the modern game we do. In the traditional Kerry game we don't, and there's your answer. And if we want to compete with the bigger counties, we have to play a sweeper role, because the one thing about it is that what we've learned to our cost down the last couple of years is that when we go man on man with players, go back to Mayo, go back to Tyrone, go back to Armagh when they opened us up in years, we don't have that line of defence, and Paul Murphy gives us that. The thing that Paul Murphy is lacking at the moment is the experience, and that experience it'll come from the mistakes. I mean, if you think about it, the goal that happened, Paul Murphy was the first player that was back on the line within feet of it. Every other player was stretched left, right and centre, but he still knew to come back.
Dublin don't give possession away, that if there's a sweeper tracking in front of the full forward line or full back line, they won't put, as we call it, somebody described it today as foolish ball into that full forward line.
Yeah, they don't. But in Dublin's defence, they've won 5 All-Irelands. They've been competitive since 2011. They've only missed 1. They could have 7 in a row. you know, they are playing that system all the time. 'Tis easy fit fellas into that role. Keane O'Sullivan had it, now who's injured. You know, 'tis easy to step up. I suppose where we're missing players in a sense is that while we have a panel, we don't have an experienced panel. We don't have the luxury of sitting maybe 10 fellas like Dublin sat off the starting 26 who would be inside, we'll say, playing A versus B at a very experienced level. But that will come. I mean, I suppose the one thing about it is that, and Darran said it, we have to look at the bigger picture. I mean, the smaller pictures, we lost the smaller pictures, we can hold our hands up and saying, oh, we made mistakes on the sideline, the players didn't perform. But the bigger picture is next year, 2020, 2021, this Dublin team aren't going away at all. I mean, there's this myth out there that because they won 5, they're disappearing. Kerry and Dublin can be playing each other for the next 2 or 3 years' time, and there's no guarantee that we'll get back to an All-Ireland final next year or even win an All-Ireland final. But the bigger picture is that we have to develop, we have to grow, and we have to learn.
Definitely, and we're at that stage where that you said it at the outset, Liam, today, that we didn't expect to be in an All-Ireland final because we had a new management team and very young players. But with the Kerry public, you can say young for so long that and suddenly, look, we want things to happen. But and we'll just go off on another tangent. The county championship is so important now.
It is going to be huge, like
one of the biggest years ever.
One of the biggest years ever, and I think that's going to be a big tool for Peter Keane, because there's young guys out there now who know, right, we have a young Kerry team. There's guys who are on the verge there. I'll just name a few of them, the likes of the Donal Sullivans, the Eddie Horns, the Barry O'Man, he's out of under 20s this year, the extended boys, then the Gavin O'Brien. I think it's going to be a massive championship for the Gavin O'Briens, the Liam Carneys, the Graham Sullivans, the Rob Burtons, these guys who are going to be knocking at the door for next year. And I think Peter wants that as well, because we need it. For years, Tim, we spoke around the table here. For years we had a county championship where we had county players who had no interest in it whatsoever. It has flipped completely now. It's actually going to be a huge competition for a young guy.
That's a feeder for the
that's a feeder, yeah. And I think even back in our day and back in John and Denny's day, you played well with St. Kieran's or Stacks or Knockary. You were called in. You were called in because of your performances. That kind of slipped away for years, but it has come back, and I think no more so this year is going to be huge. Like, just on a couple of things, I know stats. I know a lot of people don't like too much stats, but there's one that really comes out for me here. Freeze conceded in opposition half, and Freeze conceded in our own half. Limerick had 11 in the opposition half, Dublin had 11 in the opposition half, and we had only 8. I know it's only 3, so it doesn't sound much, but with games and margins, yeah. And then it was 6 and 3 in their own half. It just was the cuteness. It was Dublin were fouling. It was just their cuteness.
They knew where to foul.
They knew where to foul. And if you look back at it, with David Moran, when Munchin going through, if he pulled the jersey, pulled him back, because he wasn't hands. He was, David was kind of afraid to maybe pull him down or do something, but just put a bit of cuteness, pull the jersey, stop him from going through. Small things like that, and I think that's where Dublin and like Donal said there, the experience that hopefully we'll pick up over the coming years.
John, we go back to the first half. Dublin started pretty well. If you were to divide those 2 quarters in that first half, that Dublin won the first and we won the second.
Yeah, Tim, we said it here, the fear going into the game was the top players for Dublin that didn't perform to their ability in the drawn game. Con Callahan, Kieran Kilkenny, Paul Mannion, Brian Finton. Would they have 2 bad days in a row? Rarely it happened, and it didn't happen. They were buzzing around. Con O'Callaghan set down a marker from the very start. He could drop the shoulder and kick the ball over the bar. Himself and Mannion and Kilkenny, they kicked 12 points between them.
Massive scoring. Yeah.
Superb scoring, and I suppose there's a bit of negativity about the Kerry supporters since Saturday night. About it was a game we should have won and we let it go, but we're ahead of our time. And people mightn't say that, the management mightn't say that. When you're in there, you want to win, and we're all disappointed. But we have to look, and we were all part of history last Saturday night. This Dublin team is one of the best teams that we've ever seen, and that's in any generation. And they set the standards, and people that think they're gone, I agree with Donal, they're far from gone. This Jim Gavin won't walk away, because Jim Gavin is a man that wants success, and this team wants success. You could see the way the interviews afterwards. There was nobody jumping around the place too much or getting carried away. It was another win. They're looking at 6 already. There's no doubt about it. they mightn't mention it, but they are looking at 6 because, winning medals, I think it's all about, they're a professional outfit in everything but name, in fairness. And the biggest tribute you could pay to Kerry here is that we matched them, and 'twas the narrow lines it was on a knife edge. The goal after half-time had a huge effect in the game. It was just the ball broke. Adrian Spillane was caught to the wrong side of Murchan. He went through. He took steps, but what a finish. I mean, if one of the Kerry forwards did that, we'd be raving about it. We had some massive performances. It was a fantastic year. We've learned an awful lot. And the management team have learned a lot. And you mentioned about the county championship. The county championship is going to be great, and we need players out of it. But if you get players coming in out of the county championship for next year, they're not ready to go into the Kerry team. You look at the physique and the strength of Dublin. Look at them in the parade. They're years ahead of Kerry. And that's the difference at the end of the day. They have the stamina built up. They have the strength and conditioning. It doesn't happen overnight. I heard somebody saying today on the radio, David Clifford and Shawnee Shea, they have developed over the last 2 years from being in, first of all with Mrs. Morris and now with Peter. And they show that. But it'll take, before they really reach the level that's required, all this team, there's another 3 or 4 years of that work to go in. And, we're delighted where we are. Of course we lost 2 finals, but like we said, if we were told at the start of the year that we'd get where we got this year, we'd be delighted. And we have to pay a tribute to Dublin. They've been super champions. Obviously when you're dominating, people want to see you beaten. Like Kilkenny in the hurling, like Kerry when they were there before, going for 5 in a row, when they won the 3 in a row. It's bad for football, people will tell you. But football was the real winner at the weekend. These 2 games are actually after lighting up the football season, and they're after bringing interest back into the game. People that normally mightn't talk about Gaelic football, they're on about Kerry and Dublin. They're the 2 best teams in the country. They bring the best out of each other, and the support and the banter is part of it. And, we're lucky, I suppose. I was honoured to be part of the Radio Kerry team on Saturday night, to be above in the Hogan stand, looking down and witnessing history. It's hard to make it, and history was made, and all we can do is to work. We're not far off. We need a few players to get back there and to compete again, because we did compete with them, and there's great credit due to everybody involved. Of course there was mistakes made. Of course there was chances missed, but they're narrow lines.
Yeah, definitely so, and I'll get through one comment before we take our next break. Hello from Donegal, delighted with the Kerry boys' performance this year, and they did the county proud. Disappointed for the team and management. They deserved a medal for their efforts, but I have, the reward will come sooner than later. 2 points I wish to make on this year. The Kerry fans really upped their game this year. The support in the National League, especially the away games, was fantastic. We Kerry fans have to start getting behind the Kerry junior team. I count at least 6 players in the 26 that have won All-Ireland Junior Championships in the past few years. And that comes from Johnny O'Sullivan in Killybegs, but is a native of Timplano. We now take a break. DJ, you're very welcome back here to Terrace Talk. I've Donal Barry, Denny Long, John Kennedy and Liam Brosnan in studio as we look back at the weekend's action in Croke Park. And those comments coming through: if Dublin are kings, then Kerry are the heirs to the throne. And that comes from a Tralee supporter. In relation to Tommy Walsh, we cannot really talk about him unless we know his fitness level and his injury history. Well, I think we can talk about him, because if you're inside in the Kerry panel, you've got to be fit, otherwise you shouldn't be there. We got our tactics all wrong, not moving up on the Dublin kick out and leaving them run at us. Also, the way we fell back defending, that's not Kerry football. We're looking more like Tyrone, loyal Kerry fan for 40 years. Denny, was that a surprise to you, that if you want to get something out of Dublin, I suppose you have to press, don't you, up high?
Yeah, I think that, whether it was a tactical thing or not, was that from the first game, the drawn game, to the replay, Kerry certainly had changed on the press that they call pressing in on Cluxton. I think they made it too easy for Dublin to get possession. Cluxton dominated the game with his kick out, was it 23 out of 24 or something like that. And once you give a team with that running power and that strength and that football ability, you were really trying to catch up the game. And I think, in fairness to Kerry, where they were extremely good in the drawn game, I think that game took an awful lot out of the Kerry players, particularly probably the players that have only been in there for 2 or 3 or 4 years. And you could see with 10 or 15 minutes to go, the game was gone from them, but the energy was sapped out of them. And that, I think the drawn game took an awful toll on Kerry's energy levels. And, you know, let's be fair, they should have taken it the first day. It was a golden opportunity, and that's not being critical about them, but giving Dublin the second chance with the team they have, with the ability, with the players. And if you look at the score, they got 117 from play. Kerry got marvellous points from play. Dublin got 117 from play. It was, you know, you weren't going to catch them a second day, and they upped their game. And I think a lot of the Kerry players, for no great fault, but energy-wise, Kerry didn't seem to have it in the replay.
Yeah, definitely so. Of course, the GA recommendation of a second tier to be voted in October. What do the third and fourth division teams think of this? Well, now I've Carlow senior footballer Benny Kavanaugh on the line. Of course, he's made over 100 appearances for Carlow. Benny, how are you?
Good, no, thanks.
You're very welcome to Terrace Talk. Benny, first of all, we were discussing, I suppose, the events that happened in Croke Park. Your take on the Dublin versus Kerry game?
Look, it was the first day, you know, the drawing game was, you know, a cracking game, and I suppose just looking back at, you know, the sense is that Kerry, that was their chance to take Dublin on, you know, when they had them, you know, the pressure was on Dublin that day, and, you know, Dublin seemed to go away and do their homework and come back out, you know, the first 10-15 minutes, they targeted the first 10 or 15 minutes and they put 5 points within, you know, within that space of time, and Kerry came back. In fairness, and Kerry had a great crack at them, like, you know, and I suppose that Kerry team is building there, and they'll be there for a good few years. But, like, you know, Dublin probably a bit more experienced in the second game, you know, and got over the line.
Benny, there's a huge gulf between Dublin and the rest, including yourselves, in Leinster. What's your thoughts on the third and fourth division teams about this new suggestion or proposal for Congress?
Well, I suppose, you know, it's a good thing, really. I'd be in favour of the proposals myself, you know, both proposals. You know, you need to be competitive, you know, in county football. You need to be competitive, and playing against the likes of Dublin and stuff, you know, championship is the big day out, you know, but at the end of the day, you come up against Dublin there, and, you know, in Leinster, and, you know, just you're setting your goals realistically. You have no hope, really, like, you know, just only coming from your own point of view, but setting a two-tier championship kind of gives you goals. You can set goals to say, you know, at the end of the day, when you walk away from your county career, whenever it is, maybe you always want to walk away with a bit of silverware, you know, and that gives you an opportunity. You know, in the All-Ireland series, you know, it's tough for Division 4, 3 teams to do that. But with the two-tier championships, it gives them a realistic opportunity of setting goals and trying to win a bit of silverware. You know, the championship is the big day. Like, you know, the league competition is a great competition, but, you know, at the end of the day, championship is the big day, you know.
Benny, how demoralising is that you go out, just for argument's sake, you pull Dublin in the first round of the Leinster Championship, and you know that you haven't a hope of turning them over, and you also know that you haven't a hope of winning Sam Maguire, and you putting in probably the same effort as any other player in Leinster.
Definitely, yeah, you know, and, you know, coming up against Dublin in the first round of the Leinster Championship, you say to yourself, look, what hope have we got? You're nearly already building towards, so, you know, you end your league campaign and you have a period off, and then you rebuild again towards your championship, your first game, your round of your championship, and you come up against Dublin. You're already setting your goals for the game after that, which is another 6 weeks past that. So you're already like 8-10 weeks setting for a game that maybe a qualifier game in the middle of July or whenever it may be, the end of July, and God knows only who you get, and then you're going out of it, like, you know. So
because what date did you finish up playing football this year? As in
what date did we finish up?
Or month?
It would have been. What month was it? Would have been the end of June. Would have been the end of June.
So you won't. When will you be in with the county panel again?
I suppose, you know, you'll be back training there. You'll be doing your own individual stuff or whatever. But it'll be probably November, 15th November. You know, late November, December.
That's a big gap then, isn't it? You know, and you know you won't have any competitive football then until what, the first week of February.
The first week of late January. Like, you know, you probably let the first round kicks off. Like, you know, it's a long time from November, you know, to June, like, you know, but to only play a few games within that space of time.
Yeah,
you know,
that's, and players like yourself want to play football.
Yeah, well, it kind of turns, you know, I wouldn't, you know, we're after having a couple of years there. We had a bit of success. We got Division 4, you know, back down now again this year was kind of a bit demoralising, you know, but you just regroup again. Now, as I said, the league is a great competition, and it's run off, every couple of weeks. But you need something like that at a championship stage, like, you know what I mean, where you're in the summer, pig football, everyone is buzzing like to play football, and you want to play 3 or 4 games,
Yeah, definitely. So, Benny, well, we wish you the best luck. We'll be looking out for your performances in the Alliance National Football League come February. It's a long time to wait, but fair play to you, and I reckon this probably will get thumbs up.
Good man, thank you.
Great stuff, and of course that is Benny Kavanaugh. Of course, he's made 100 appearances with Carlow, and he just tells the story there. You go out against Dublin every year, you're not going to win Sam Maguire in your lifetime if you're from these counties, and we're very fortunate then in Kerry that we can be at the business end and that we will win Sam hopefully in the next couple of years. Donal, still comments coming into us. The goal killed the game just like 2008. Kerry never led, never pushed up again on the kickouts, never learned from the first match, but well done to the team and management. Pat Kelly in Kilrush.
Yeah, well, I suppose no matter what dressing you're in, when you're going at half time and you're 10-all, the first thing you tell them all, we'll keep it tight, we'll keep ourselves in the game.
There was a great feeling around the
There was. I mean, people nearly stood to a man to clap them off the field. I mean, there was a real kind of theatre about the whole thing. Kerry had come back, they were 5-1 down, they were 7-3 down, they were 9-7 down, next thing they were 10-all. The goal, I suppose, if anything, the goal affected the supporters as much as the players in the field, because there was kind of a numb silence about the whole thing, and the way it was given away and the way it was scored, it was all thing. But the one thing that people forget about, Kerry were still only a goal behind coming to the 57 and 58 minute. We were still in the contest, but the one thing that sapped more energy from us and from Kerry, I thought personally, apart from the goal, was the amount of wides that we ran up after winning so much competitive ball. Dermot Connor flashed one wide, Tom Sullivan came up, kicked one wide, Jack Barry had one wide, David Moran had 2 wide. They're the kind of scores that you need to score to keep yourself competitive. And then the reverse, Dublin seemed to find their scores a lot easier, and none of their scores were easy scores either. They were all from play. I mean, there was one ball where even Dermot Connolly arrived on the scene, picked up the ball, played a fantastic ball 40 yards in, caught, bang, over the bar, fantastic score. And all these scores were giving Dublin more momentum, and as Dublin were getting that momentum, it just saps away a little bit more energy. And I think while the goal was the downfall, it wasn't the crucial score that I think killed us. I think the fact that we were wildly wasteful. I mean, at the end of the day, we ended up with 10 wides, Dublin had 4.
But everything we did needed a lot of energy. That at one stage in the second half, Paul Ganey picked up a ball out near the Cusack stand side. He looked up, there was nobody inside, only Stephen Cluxton, as well as 1 or 2 of the backs. Can we learn from Dublin that, and I keep referring back to when Bernard Brogan was playing, that he never went more than 30 metres from the opposition goal, that you always had an out ball.
I think the difference between us and Dublin is that we're like 2 cars. There was only so much diesel we could put in the Kerry car, but there was a bigger tank on all the Dublin players. They just seemed to have more energy. They kept going for longer. They're able to compete longer. They're professionally trained. They're trained at an elite level, where you still have the Kerry players that are still kind of, dicing with work, coming into training, trying to live their life and trying to be an amateur player at the same time. I don't think Dublin have that, and that affects when you go on to the field of play. And if you look at it another way, Kerry.
Sorry, I must pick you up on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Are you saying that life is easier as a footballer for a Dublin player than a Kerry player?
I'm saying that when you're in Dublin, you're no more than 20 minutes from anywhere that you want to go. If you're in Kerry, it's a long way to go from Dingle or Carsveen to Tralee for training. I mean, that is just a fact of life. But the one thing about it is that...
Are all Dublin, do we know that? Are all Dublin players living in Dublin? I take it they are.
They're all Dublin-based players. Dublin have Abbottstown, they have DCU when they need to go training, they have Parnell Park, the home of the Dubs when they use it. Kerry have to play around in the sense... And look, when we'll go back another bit. A lot of the Kerry lads are still in college. I mean, Liam has 4 of them playing Segerson football. Yep. I mean, there's a big gap from 4 guys playing Segerson football to 7, 8, 9, 10 Dublin fellas looking for their 7th and 8th medal. And that is the gap. And people have to realise that there is a gap. My young fellow was terribly disappointed. He couldn't understand how we lost. They go to school, the jersey says. And I had to explain to him that it was like his team in baby infants were put together and they had to play the 6th class boys. And the first day they went out and they drew, and that was great. But they were never going to beat them the second day. Dublin had way more learned. And actually, Jim Gavin learned an awful lot more because, the changes he made, I sat here and I said Jim Gavin was weak because he had loyalty towards Michael Darran Macaulay. He had no loyalty to Michael Darran Macaulay the last day. He was the weak link in the centre of the field. He got the door. And he had those players that he could move around with. We made a lot of probably poor decisions, I think, at different times in that game. But by the time we kind of got around to it, the game was gone. The game was gone from us. And all we can do now at this stage is pick up those pieces, put them together again, and say, look, we have hope. I mean, we're in a far better off place, as Liam said, than we were at the start of the year.
Of course.
I think we're a lot closer to winning an All-Ireland now than we've been for a number of years. But the bar is still Dublin, and it's still that little bit higher than us.
Definitely so. We take our next break. You're very welcome back here to Terrace Talk. I've Liam Brosnan, John Kennedy, Denny Long and Donal Barry in studio. Looking back at the game, the big game in Croke Park over the weekend between Kerry and Dublin. And those comments coming through. Tim, nobody helped mourn when Merkin was bearing down on goal. It was awful from the backs to cover across. You wouldn't see that goal in a county league game, defensively wise. And that comes from Tom in Forries. Hi Tim, can you ask your panel what do they think of the Kerry forwards not marking the Dublin backs shoulder to shoulder for Cluxton kickouts? We already got through that. Congrats to this amazing team on their entertainment they gave us all years. Our hearts are broken for them, but they tried so hard and worked so hard. That comes from a North Kerry supporter. We've had a great run following the brilliant young team. They have gone from strength to strength and are a credit, and thanks again to the backroom team. And that comes from Ratmore. Of the 8 Kerry championship matches, 1 was played at home in Killarney. Dublin played 9 championship matches, 7 were played at home. Surely Croke Park is worth 5 or 6 points advantage to the Dublin side every time. Why was Shane Enright not brought in with all he has done this year? He could be called on, especially in the drawing game. He saved possession from the last Donegal attack to win the game in 2014. Why didn't Peter put experienced players like Shane Enright and Killian Young? And that comes from James in Tralee. Hi Tim, a great show as always. Just wondering, do the panel think Kerry can stop Dublin winning 6 in a row? And that comes from Mike Nestole. We're going to discuss that actually later. Liam, we said about the goal, it was decisive in the first few seconds, but Kerry, like Donal has said earlier, we brought it back again, there was only a 1-score difference come 56, 57 minutes.
Yeah, Tim, look, I suppose if you want to concede a goal, it's the right time to concede a goal at half time. Just after half time, you still have over 30 minutes of football to be played, 35 minutes. So it did come in the right time for Dublin, and to be honest, I didn't really panic too much because I knew the way we were playing, we were going to come back into it. But then when as the second half proceeded, we were kind of snatching at a lot of stuff. I think energy wise, Denise said it earlier, I do think now looking back on it, the first game took a lot out of us. I thought, we just didn't have the buzz about us. That whole thing of the game at 6 o'clock on a Saturday evening, it doesn't help. Guys inside the hotel, they were there since Friday night. There's a long wait until you get onto the field on Saturday evening. So I just thought we were flat compared to the first day. Denny made a very good point there earlier against off the thing, and I'm going to say it, but back in '82 when Kerry played the famous Offaly, Kerry had the 2 chances at the end to equalise it. If that went to replay, would Kerry have won it? And I think we all agreed here that Kerry probably would have won it well. So it was like us the last day. We had our chance against Dublin. We were a young team coming into it. We didn't get across the line. Took a lot of energy. Dublin learned a lot more than what we did, experience-wise again. The Kilkenny kicked nothing in the first game. He kicked 4 points the last day. You could see from the word go, Mannion, Callaghan, Dean Rock, they were on a mission. And I think just our young players didn't really expect it, and it's hard because look, it's an All-Ireland final, the whole country, the world, everyone's looking at it, and a bit of experience, just when to foul a player, when to not foul a player, conceding the kick-outs, then burning a lot of energy chasing a ball around the field, so we went flat towards the end, and I think that's when if you look at the guys that missed the kicks at the goals, they're not the guys you want on the ball in them positions. It was the David Cliffords, it was the Paul Gainey's, the Shawnee Sheas, but we just couldn't get the ball to him at that stage.
Did we need to have David Clifford and Paul Gainey out around the middle of the field?
Not out around the middle of the field, no, not around the middle of the field. But Tim, that's the way Dublin played. They did it to Colm Cooper years ago. Now, if you have a good forward inside, you're trying to pull him away from goals, and Dublin have a habit of doing that. It's all tactical. They were attacking, they were constantly attacking, they were pulling fellas out of position.
If you have so many defenders back, why would David Clifford need to go up anyway? Just let him off. What if the ball is turned over? Would you like to be Stephen Cluxton, be one-on-one with David Clifford inside the edge?
Oh no, and that's what I suppose the Kerry management will have to work on. That we have to have, like you were on about Bernard Brogan. I was beside a post, watched Dublin many time, and Bernard Brogan, the McManamans, all these guys, they never went outside the 30-yard line. They made the diagonal runs the whole lot, and that's something Dublin will have to do. Even looking at the game the last day, there's so much. You could see Jason Sherlock written all over him. I know he was like a little pest running in out of the field, pointing where fellas were running, but like it's the basketball side of it,
and the swapping,
and you could actually see the screening. If you saw the first kick out that Cluxton did, if you actually watch it on television again, you see the screening. They all came into a huddle, they screened each other, they went off. You could see one of the points, I know it was a Mannion's point in the second half, where everyone was rowing for a third man tackle. There was a body check there again. It was a third man tackle, but the referee never called it. They're all into this kind of stuff. They work so hard at this. This doesn't happen off cuff. These are all worked. That goal, they're on about munching, but the way the Dublin forwards just opened the Red Sea, like that's something that's talked about. That's something that's worked about. Yeah, the corner forwards hit the sideline, the wing forwards it opened up down the middle. So you don't do that unless it's pre-planned, and I think that's where Dublin are just that little bit ahead of us. I think in those side of things. But I'd be hoping that when the management sit down and they're working into things, that maybe that we can, like Donald said, we're not going to pass them in the next 12 months or maybe even 2 years. It's going to take time. They're going nowhere. They're just as young. There's a couple of fellas there, and it's like I said earlier, and it's going to be an exciting time to be a Kerry supporter.
John Kennedy, who won the tactical battle? I know Dublin won the game, but tactically?
Yeah, Tim, it's difficult to know. Tactics will go so far, but the stats will show in the 53rd minute there was 3 points in it. Stephen O'Brien, and Denny said a while ago, Conor Lane did put up his hand for a free, gave him the advantage. He went through, and was it Paul Gainey that was on his right hand side? Yeah. He went for the shot, it was saved by Cluxton. Tis hypothetical now, but had that gone in, with 17 minutes plus injury time left, we'd be level again. That's how close it is. Cluxton saved, and Cluxton had a huge bearing on the game. Tactics will take us so far, but Tom O'Sullivan kicked a wide for Kerry. Cluxton put the ball down. Everybody was marked. He drove it 70 yards to Kilkenny, won the ball. Mannion got a point. That's the difference at the end of the day. And you have to give credit as well. Shane Ryan, who was coming for a bit of criticism from time to time, I thought he was excellent last Saturday.
Played well, sure. All his kick-outs, 100%.
So we are learning, you see. But narrow lines, substitutions and all that are fair enough. We'll all differ on those things. Should a fella be brought in early? Should he start? But with 15 minutes left, there was 3 points in it. Now, Dublin had the lead. What we didn't want going into the game was Dublin 3 or 4 points up in the last 10 minutes. No better team in the country to hold possession, make you work, sap the energy levels, dictate the pace. That's what they did. Frustrating to watch, frustrating to play against, but successful to do it.
Would Dublin have won the All-Ireland without Stephen Cluxton?
No. No question about it. No question about it.
Okay, I'll get through a few comments before we go to our break. Can you explain why the homecoming was not in Tralee regardless of the result? Well, County Board delegates voted 2 years ago to have a single homecoming in the event of All-Ireland loss. They decided to make Killarney the venue for the first one and then Tralee for the following year. All clubs voted to bring this in. Why did Kerry not push up on the Dublin kickouts in the drawn game? Well, I think that's answered already by Denny Denny. And does the panel think the management team is not the Messiah we thought they were? And that comes from Brendan Moynihan in Tralee. Kerry need to pull up their socks. Kerry had a lot of wides. Does Liam Brosnan think it was crazy to bring on James O'Donoghue, who's clearly past his best? And that comes from James Cronin in Dewar. Well, I'm going to ask Liam that question after we take this break. You're very welcome back to our second hour of Terrace Talk, and well, the four lads still remain in studio with us. That is Donal Barry, Denny Long, John Kennedy and Liam Brosnan. Liam, that question before the break I'll have, because listeners will remind me that I didn't ask you if I don't ask you. Does Liam Brosnan think it was crazy to bring on James O'Donoghue, who was clearly past his best? And that comes from James Cronin in Dewar.
Well, I don't think it was crazy, because look, the management must have seen something in him. We heard before the drawing match that he was supposed to be going well in training, that he was unlucky not to make the panel for the first match, and then he came on the panel when we got. So, and the funny thing about it, when we got the programme last day, there was more interest to see who was 15. I never before seen it, who was 15 to number 26 rather than 1 to 15, which is, it just shows you the way the game has gone, Tim. So when he came on,
there's a template. Liam, you were a manager of a Sigerson Cup team, you were a manager out in Brosnan. Players must be at a certain level of fitness to have him on a panel.
Oh, you do, yeah. Well, I suppose
especially in the county panel.
Clubs are different, because you're hoping to, with numbers wise and stuff like that. But
you win the North Kerry
at this level, I'll tell you at Christmas Day. But at this level, Tim, it's a different story altogether. You have the cream panel if you're not at that. Yeah, level. You have the cream of the county, and you can pick the. So you won't be in there. It's the same with Dublin, with the Philly McMahons and the Bernard Brogans last time. If you're not, and Darren McCauley's, if you're not doing the job, you're not going to be there, because there's fellas lying up behind you, and Kerry's no different. If James O'Donoghue wasn't going to be doing the job, and I heard it about Killian Young, why is Killian Young there? No, if Killian wasn't doing the job, we got to have a bit of faith in the Kerry management, so we have to trust him. We don't know what's going on in training, so these guys must have been doing well, they must be fit, so that's the reason why they're in the panel.
In relation to the match, two questions for our panel. Why did Kerry concede the kick out to Dublin? We've actually addressed that already. And why did Kerry continue to kick high balls into the square, especially in the first half? We also addressed that. Agreeing with John's comment, John Kennedy, you have somebody agreeing with you tonight. Kerry were there for the history, but came out at the wrong side of it. Also, I've never seen the number of people consuming bottles of alcohol on the Cusick stand during the game. A new thing creeping into football. Hi Tim, could we run the All-Ireland like a horse race handicap? Start Dublin on scratch and work from there. Bookmakers' odds compiler are very accurate on game handicaps and could help. It mightn't tighten up the game results. Moving to two-tier competitions proves about 5 teams, maybe 6, want to win Sam now. Dublin have at least 15 points and more on all, and that comes from Mick Hannafin in Tralee. Hi Tim, insightful show as always. As Kerry are the aristocrats of Gaelic football, we Kerry supporters are more despondent over Dublin achieving the 5 in a row at our expense. Do the panel see any other teams progressing to the level Dublin and Kerry have currently set? And that comes from Paul McCarthy in Causeway. Denny, is it a case of Dublin maybe a gap between themselves and Kerry, and after that another gap?
Well, I suppose, Tim, basically, you have 5 or 6 teams. Dublin are at the top of that league. Kerry, Mayo, Tyrone, Galway, Donegal. That's what you're talking about. Now, you were talking to a man there from Carlow earlier in the show, and he's played 100 times for Carlow. Right, a fantastic achievement, and probably every day he went out, he never had a chance of playing in an All-Ireland. Now you're talking about a 2-tier system. Now the 2-tier system has faults in my opinion, that you still have counties and you still have very good players in counties. You had Mickey Kearns and Sligo going way back. Everybody wanted to see Mickey Kearns play, right? And there are still good players, and there will always be good players in weak counties. And I think it is wrong to deprive them of playing in the All-Ireland series. But maybe a good thing would be, this backdoor thing really hasn't worked, in my opinion, because a weak team gets a hammering from Kerry or Dublin. And then they draw another good team and they get another hammering. Instead of getting one hammering here, they're getting 2 hammerings. Now, what I'd like to see maybe is have an open draw. Forget about the provincials. They're gone anyway as far as I can see. Have an open draw if you're beaten in the first round, your top 16 then goes through to the All-Ireland series and then run off a meaningful second competition for that other 16 teams. At least if the Carlows and the other weaker counties
are out of the championship proper, they still have a competition to play.
Correct.
Yeah, very good point. Now we'll go to our phone lines again, lads, and I should have former Dublin great and former Dublin keeper, that is John O'Leary on the line. Good evening, John.
Good evening, how are you?
You're very welcome to Terrace Talk. First of all, what's the mood in Dublin after your great achievement the weekend, winning the 5 in a row?
Well, the mood was good. Like I was saying, it was a good night for everybody, and this Saturday with the ladies on Sunday, so it was nice to have a Saturday night, give you a full weekend. But we're knuckling down now. We're getting ready for number 6.
Gee, you're starting early, aren't you? You're not even celebrating. I see some photograph up on social media where Kieran Kilkenny was relaxing at home last night, so any other county they'd be out celebrating. Can I ask, John, I suppose the main point or the main theme in the programme tonight, as far as the points coming through to us, that is there still a huge gap between Dublin and Kerry?
I don't think so, no. I mean, this thing of, Dublin, running away with now for the next couple of years is a bit false. I mean, those Kerry guys have won minor titles, 3 or 4 in a row in Croke Park, and you can see them coming through now. So that Kerry team will win, I'd say 2 All-Irelands or maybe more in the next 5 or 6 years easily, because they put Dublin to the sword. They're good footballers, and with a bit of luck on the first day, they could have won on the first day and pulled away. So they'll definitely be thereabouts for the next 5 or 6 years. And Kerry have nothing to worry about in terms of the production line. I think is coming good now, and Kerry probably maybe a year early for them, but they had a chance. They were lucky the first day, but I'd be fairly hopeful about the Kerry man. I'm sort of fearful if I was in Dublin and other counties because of what's coming through.
John, and your man that you probably played with as well, Jim Gavin, huge chat about him, how the professionalism he brings to the Dublin setup, that it's run like a business and guys just go out, do the job. Is that's not in many of the other counties, because a huge thing down here is saying you've access and easy access to a lot of things, be it DCU. You talk about Kerry players. Kerry players have to travel from Cork, from Dublin for training, but everything is Dublin based.
Well, it is, but I mean, that's just, that's not Dublin's fault. I think there's Tralee IT and there's good facilities around all the counties. I think the biggest problem is the sort of attitude of all the counties, because they, not saying Kerry do, but you tend to hear the sort of poor me attitude, and the moment that goes on, the further Dublin are going to pull away. Because at the end of the day, I mean, Dublin don't have a developing centre like some of the counties do that are, around the country, and I've seen them, they're service, Kerry included. So, but they have facilities that they use and they have access to the more than there's universities around the country as well. There's DITs and the likes of that sort of stuff. So, to me, I think it's disappointing to hear this argument all the time. It's split in Dublin and they have an advantage, but for 16 years, from 95 to 11, they didn't even contest an All-Ireland final, and that's not that long ago. And I think Dublin really got their act together about 15, 20 years ago in terms of development squads and GPOs out in schools and helping clubs, and that has started to feed through at senior level, not necessarily at a sort of minor level.
And John, you've got to
Jim Gavin.
You've got to have a level playing pitch as well. That we talk about the Super 8s, and it's really come up for discussion. I think it'll be spoken about at convention as well. That you have, you could have both your home game and your neutral venue in Croke Park. Do you think that is fair?
Well,
and I don't want an answer. Well, that's the way it is.
Well,
but
it's as fair as it is. The problem is, Dublin draw the crowd, so therefore, if you move that match down the country to a sort of a 20,000-seater stadium, less people are going to see the game and go to and experience that. So I play with Dublin, and Dublin's no problem travelling. I think the biggest issue is probably the crowd will tend to be very small.
Thurles has a huge capacity, hasn't it? It's probably quite big. Thurles.
Turles, yeah, but it's still be smallish rounds once you both stick in the Croke Park, and depends who the opposition is. But to be honest, I also think the Super 8s are sort of not adding to the game anyway, because you end up with a dead rubber match in the middle of it. And this notion of going from sort of knockout to league back to knockout again doesn't make much of a sense. So Super 8s, yeah, I have no problem with them moving around the country, because Dublin travelled to Alma twice in the last 2 years, and you draw a crowd, and there's a good following. You get a bigger crowd of a club in Croke Park, but they're still going to do the business, away from home.
At the outset you spoke about Dublin, the start for 6, but that's probably built into these players' minds. A lot of people say maybe that Dublin, a few of their players, stroke the likes of Kevin McManaman, and Bernard Brogan was brought back into the panel. A lot of guys will probably move aside, but it's a conveyor belt as well in Dublin, isn't it, John?
Yeah, well, I think above all, he said that Jim was running like a business. I think it's more like a military operations, given his background. And, they've built a sort of an ethos and a culture over the last 10 years when he started with the 21s and, build it onto now. And the Dublin secret really has to be to keep that going. Can we keep Jim at the helm for another couple of years? Hopefully, yeah. But I think the culture is sort of well embedded there. And players are sticking to it. That there's no egos certainly on the team. I have to speak, and I have the way they play. I think that's what he has achieved quicker than anybody else in the country. So, is that the template to follow? Well, possibly yes. It's not about money. Some of it is about facilities, but at the end of the day, that doesn't make get you a goalkeeper like Stephen Cluxton or a fella like Dean Rock who's put in the mileage and the work on the training pitch to get where he is. So I think there's a lot of things that come together. Dublin almost in a perfect storm to some degree with Jim Gavin primarily, but they would have put the groundwork in 10 or 12 years ago, and it's paying off that we're looking to have a really, really good manager, and he's been a good setup around him.
Yeah, definitely so. Can I mention the underdogs, because our producer here of Terrace Talk, his brother is involved, Jason Hickson from Auniscall. I take it your son is involved as well, Fionn?
He is, yeah. Fionn is 19-year-old. I encourage him to go for there. I saw it on the website. Look where when you go for it, give it a go. So he's 19. He's never been on any squad or any tries in a development squad. So he's probably at his best level of football now. So I encourage him to go for it, and it's been a great experience. He's playing, cornerback, left halfback, Division 1 football in Dublin. And it's a good experience. He's certainly the best coach he's got so far. So he's enjoying it. It's a good challenge, and I'm looking forward to the programme. And
John, could you see a few players that are involved with those underdogs making a county setup or being called in to have a look at them on a training panel or whatever?
Yeah, well, that'd be sort of the hope. I mean, Kerry and Dublin, I think, is the biggest name to come out of the underdogs, along with Pearson O'Neill, I think. So yeah, it'd be great. I guess it's a bit of a platform. It's hard to break into development squads because they tend to start off into the 14, 15 all the way up.
Correct.
It's hard to break into it if you haven't been there already. So, look, it gives him a bit of exposure if he does well and plays well, and maybe he's been into a trial along the way somewhere, and hopefully, it'd be great to see him playing for Dublin at some stage.
One final question: has Jim Gavin a training session with Dublin tonight, getting ready for the drive for 6?
Well, I'm actually up. He probably has. I'm up here training with the under 10s, on the 11s, and Fingal Ravens, a small club between Swords and Ashburn, and we're training for the 15 in a row.
Great stuff. John, thanks a million for coming on tonight. Great sport, and well done to you and the Dublin supporters and the Dublin management and team. I'm sure that we'll be back and take that Sam from you sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and Kerry for the two great games, and the supporters likewise.
Great stuff, John. Thanks a million for coming on Terrace Talk.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Cheers.
That is John O'Leary, former Dublin goalkeeper, giving his view on the happenings over the weekend. We now take a break. You're very welcome back to Terrace Talk. Of course, I have the panel still in studio. That's Liam Brosnan, John Kennedy, Denny Long and Donal Barry. And those comments, I must apologise tonight because there's so many comments coming in. To try and get to all of them is very difficult, but I'll do my utmost to get those points out. Refereeing decisions have contributed directly to at least 3 of the Dublin wins. Merchant steps, Con O'Callaghan steps and Assault and Crowley. I'd like your panellists a view on that, and I don't want refs are human, and that comes from Jack in Tralee. Tim, while we are disappointed today, I really enjoyed my first trip to Croke Park. Kerry made us proud. It took Dublin 2 days to beat us, and that comes from Madeline. Well done, Madeline. Hi, Tim. Denny is spot on when he's saying that Cluxton found his man every time and Dublin got scores off it. What was wrong with the men on the sideline? Why did they not tell the boys, press up? Kerry never pushed up on the kickouts, and where they lost the game. That comes from James in Doha. Thierry Henry, handball caused consternation across the media in Ireland. Merchants taken 11 steps to score a goal that had huge bearing on the All-Ireland. Rules were clearly broken and wouldn't be accepted in any other sport, and that comes from Ger in West Kerry. Hello, just listening on the internet to get the Kerry perspective after Saturday's game. As a kid, I grew up watching in Croke Park Dublin versus Kerry in the 70s and 80s. I think there's a great rivalry ahead of us all for the next 10 years, although I think Dublin will win again in 2020. Warm regards, and that comes from Laurie. Mike Allen from Fireys, reading the papers today, you would think that the Dublin team were unbeatable. There is no team unbeatable. Do the panel think that it would be a good idea to pick the team captain? And that comes from our first caller. Donald, that's very interesting. It was discussed on a numerous occasions. Actually, we sent out a poll one night on Terrace Talk, or for the duration of a weekend, and it came back overwhelmingly for change. And I suppose what's new and is still raw, the Gavin White thing, that he didn't run out of the field as captain on All-Ireland final day, the replay.
Absolutely. Well, I suppose in that poll I was in the minority, obviously, so it's a great hot ball to me. I'd be a traditionalist. I believe that it gives smaller clubs the chance to line out in Croke Park and lead out on the big day.
But does it?
But that aside, it does, because look at all the other captains, Paddy, Shea, Aldo and Gaeltacht boys. Would they have ever been captains?
The game has got ruthless, Jim. The management have got ruthless. Things have changed. You get away with things 30 years ago you won't get away with now because the game has gone professional. So it must be very, a huge blow. It must be a huge blow to Gavin White.
My opinion is any captain in a 15-man team has no bearing on what goes on. All he does is toss the coin and make the speech. That's the nuts and bolts of it. The leaders in the room will be the David Morans. Look at the boys singing around the V in the last day. You knew who was up for that game by looking at them. You knew who was zoned in.
Seamus Moynihan was captain of a Kerry team, and if it was East Kerry that won the championship or anybody else, if you were to inside in that dressing room, and he had the likes of the Darran O'Sullivan inside with him, big characters inside in that dressing room, you'd still be picking Seamus Moynihan as a captain.
But who would? You would have to put that responsibility on who? The manager's back. The manager picks the wrong captain. That's more responsibility than the manager. Do you go back then and say the county board should pick who they think is the most forceful character in the room? I mean, these are all personal decisions and personal choices. You might have a situation where some guy picks the captain from the same club as a selector or a management. Then there's more pressure on that person. The traditional route.
But what are the traits of being a captain? What do you need to be a captain?
In the older days, I would imagine you needed to be somebody inspirational. I mean, you needed to be somebody who not only were you a captain and a player, but you knew around you that if a player on the left-hand side or the right-hand side wasn't playing good, that you had it. But this was something that the cameras missed the last day. Going off into the dressing room after the game, when all the players were applauded off, Shawnee Shea ran in behind Adrian Spillane and clapped him on the back. Shawnee Shea wasn't the captain, but that clap on the back was to Adrian Spillane. You're going well, you're doing well. Any fella that puts on a Kerry jersey has to have leadership. I think this whole Gavin White, he isn't. It's unfair on Gavin White. It's unfair on picking the lad out. Gavin White is a fantastic footballer.
But nobody's picking him out. It's just that the record books show that Dr. Crokes won the county final.
Correct.
The records books will show as well that because of the present rule we have within our county system here in Kerry, that the club that wins the county championship or the district side will nominate a captain. But I think it's undue pressure on the likes of Gavin White. First of all, he'd a new role to play. He was playing a position that he wasn't comfortable in, and he lost out, the man. And your captain as well. That does nothing for a player's confidence.
But are you saying so that the role of captain puts an undue pressure on a young player?
I think it does put pressure on a young player. I genuinely do. Liam?
Yeah, I'd agree with a part of what Donal is saying, but at the same time, I do think that the management team should have the role of picking the captain. I've said it here a few times, I'll go on record with it, because basically I think your captain needs to be a leader in the dressing rooms. I know there's lots of leaders in dressing rooms. You'll always have lots of leaders in dressing rooms, but I don't think that if you're inside a dressing room and you have a guy that's not a captain, over speaking a captain. Back in my day, and it's not too long ago, Tim, you had Seamus Moynihan, you had these guys, if you had a problem, you were going to them. If there was a problem, they could see it. There were these type of guys. They're like the David Moorns now because they're experienced. I think with the last couple of years, this has been popping its head up and down with our captaincies and stuff like that. And I think it's pressure that Gavin White didn't need. It was pressure that the Fionn Fitzgeralds and all these years ago probably didn't need as well. So we were always speaking. Is our captain. Even Kieran Donaghy, the year he didn't start. It's just.
And I'll just make a point, and I'll refer, and he'll probably smile when he hears this said man, that I know a man that was captain of a divisional side, and he was inside with inter-county players, and he was afraid to speak because the players there was big high-profile names inside in that dressing room, and here's I'm captain. John Kennedy.
Yeah, I'd agree with Donald's point in that tradition is a big part in this, Tim. You win a county championship, you have automatically the right to nominate a captain if you haven't a player on the panel. And that's a big thing in Kerry. But I think,
But is it gesture, or is it my point? And
times have changed.
Times have changed.
Absolutely. I would give the power to the county, to the management team to pick the captain. And if you were
they can see the guy inside in training, lads.
If you were looking at it for last weekend, there are three players that stand out. One of the three would be Paul Murphy, Paul Gainey or David Moran. They're the three most experienced men. Sometimes it doesn't fit lightly on giving a player a captain's role. Some players just can't take it. It's the guy with the experience that has been there and done that. New guys coming in, whoever they may be, and we're not talking about Gavin White. It's you lead by example as much off the field as on the field. And you're a kind of a guy that sees new guys coming in. You have a hand on the shoulder. You're a liaison between the team and the management, which is always very important. And if fellas aren't going well, it's up to the captain, I think. We were lucky in my time. You had the late Paddy Shea, you had Tommy Doyle, you had Ambrose, three super captains. If you weren't going well in training, if you weren't going well in games, they had a word in your ear. If you were stepping out of line, they also had a word in your ear. And the three of them led by example. And I think that it might be another burden, but I think the management can observe, pick their captain. How did Dublin pick their captain? Cluxton is
it's time for change.
Yeah.
Denny Long.
Yeah, I'm inclined to go with the old tradition. I think that it's a big honour for a club, and I think the people that are involved at the grassroots in a club, these are the things. If their club is lucky enough, whether it be the club team or if they're playing in a divisional system, that you have the club captain. But if you think of last Sunday, Stephen Cluxton, or Saturday evening, I think he's gone up to collect Sam Maguire 6 times. Probably never be broken. Never be broken. Right in the huddle. Before the game started, the man giving the spiff was Jack McCaffrey. Now, if you take it, right, that's what's happened in Kerry in the last number of years, that the first thing you would want when you have a captain from coming from a club or a divisional scene, that he must be guaranteed his place on the team. Now, the Crokes have been unlucky. They've been very successful. But when it comes to produce players for Kerry, they seem to be on the fringe a bit, and that's not taking from the Gavin Whites or any other players that played for the Crokes. But the first thing you would want is that the player that's nominated by his club or that's coming from a club or a divisional side, that he must be guaranteed his place. The downside for Kerry is that Gavin White was on, now played out of position. We all know that, but being played out of position is one thing. But he was on, he was off, he was on, he was off. That's difficult for him, and that's also difficult for the team. I think the captain must be guaranteed his place, but I'd still like to see the tradition being kept alive by the club.
But how could you be guaranteed your place? Nobody can.
Well, I'd say if you look back, Tim, over the history of the GA, no matter what county, whether it was down in the 60s, Offaly, Galway, Cork, all the counties, I guarantee you that the captain that was picked in January, or whenever they picked a captain that time, he was one of the key players in the team, and he came from a club or a divisional side. So it has changed a bit, and I think the Crokes are one of the reasons that it has changed. As I say, they have won several county championships and All-Ireland club championships, but when it comes to having, we know the coach was a certainty on the team always, right? But it has happened a couple of times, and I think the captain has been highlighted too much I don't think the captain has a big role. I'm agreeing with Donal. I think, I'm taking a leaf out of Dublin's book. If Jack McCaffrey is giving the spiff and they have a fellow of the calibre of Stephen Cluxton, right? Now, that tells me that maybe Cluxton, a tremendous goalkeeper, changed goalkeeping forever. Probably the best goalkeeper we ever saw. But maybe he's too quiet to be captain. And his job is he goes up and he gives a great speech when the match is over. He's been very lucky. He's made 6 speeches, gone up for the Sam Maguire 6 times. But I think there's too much of an emphasis, and I think that the captain's role really is to toss the coin and lead the team.
Our county is divided this evening.
The 2-all draw, now we're improving.
2-all draw. We now take a break. You're very welcome back to Terrace Talk. And I just gave, for our listeners out there, I just gave water to each of our 4 lads here because it was getting really hot here on Terrace Talk, as there was a divide about should the captain be from the team that won the county championship, or should it be more of a leadership role. Those comments come through us. When the Dublin youngster was going in for the goal, there were 3 Kerry defenders coming in from the left, marking nobody. They were protecting the goal, and that caller comes from Beauty's Home. What the hell was wrong with the Kerry sideline? It made me sick to keep Tommy Walsh on the sideline for so long. One player that would have won the game for us. I hope Tommy and David will stay for a couple of more years. Tommy looked in great shape and very fit, and that comes from Jamie in North Kerry. Excellent analysis from John Kennedy and Denny. The team had an excellent year and Dublin had to earn the 5 in a row. My biggest gripe about Saturday was the 6 p.m. start. All in for a very happy with the Kerry Roll On 2020. That comes from Caroline McLaughlin and in Tarbert, and there was no mention there of Donal.
We're going away again,
in that text.
Nobody in South Kerry.
We go away, Donal.
The captain should come from the club that win the county championship. If Tim and Liam came from the clubs that had a chance of winning the county championship, they might think differently. That comes from Vince in Castle Island. Why not let the team pick their captain? Teresa, actually, that is a very good point, lads, isn't it? Why not let the team pick their captain?
Yeah, that's a good point as well, yeah.
It's a very good point. Isn't it, Donald? Donald, I know you don't like change, and you're gone against us tonight. It was okay while we had an experienced team, but now we need experienced men like David Morgan as captain.
David Morgan,
Dave Morgan, I think. Yep. Our producer didn't proofread that before he gave me. That comes from David Buckley. Spot on, Donal. It's great the club is honoured with captaincy. Just because Crokes have a balanced team with no superstars, but look at Darran O'Sullivan lifting Sam. What an honour after winning the Mid-Kerry Championship. And that comes from Jenny via Twitter. And now I should have Donny Mahoney, of course, is a writer and a journalist. He was born in America and has lived in Ireland since 2004. He's one of the co-founders of the website balls.ie, and where he works today. And I should have that man online. Good evening, Donny.
Tim, how are you getting on, bud?
Not too bad at all. You're very welcome to Terrace Talk.
Thanks very much. Delighted to be here.
First of all, can I speak about the book Colm the Gooch Cooper and how it's come about?
Well, O'Brien Press, a publisher up in Dublin, had the idea that young readers, young sports fans, boys and girls, would have the same sort of thirst for information about their sports heroes that adults do. And when you look at the sort of market for sports autobiographies, that every autumn we see all these books coming out. There's thousands and thousands of kids around the country who want to know more about the sort of sports stars that they, worship. And so we figured, why not start writing books for them? So myself and Emma Ryan, a Tipperary author, she wrote a book about Cora Staunton, and I wrote a book about the Gooch, which they're both out now in all good bookstores. And they're just great sort of stories that tell the life stories of some of our favourite GA players.
Are we looking what they accomplished in the sporting arena? Are we looking at the human behind the very successful sports star that Colm Gooch Cooper was?
Yeah, there's definitely, you couldn't ignore these famous days in Croke Park, but it's really about the sort of foundation and the formation of these great players. So telling the story of how the Gooch broke through to the Kerry team, but trying to imagine those sort of famous days and those important days when he was an underage player with Dr. Crokes, trying to sort of make his way into the Kerry minor panel. All of these sort of days where his character was forged, so to speak. So it's really more. It is the human side and the family side, and I guess the real life story of the Gooch before really anybody knew who he was.
Donny, can I just touch on the game the weekend and Dublin achieving a 5 in a row? We look at it down this side or right around the country. They're as close as you can come to professional team playing an amateur sport.
Yeah, I think Peter Canavan on Sky Sports was very right that the Dubs have become a sort of, they're amateur in ethos but professional in practice. And if you look at the nutritionists and the Jim Gavin's backroom team, and whatever about the financial advantages that Dublin may have, like, it's just so hard to compete with this professional sort of outlook that they brought to it. And then really when you have a chance like Kerry had in the drawn match, you have to take it. Dublin don't give you second chances, and I think when you could just, what struck me was just how tired Kerry looked in the last 10 minutes of that match. They had left everything out on the pitch and they were still quite far away. It just shows you just how difficult it actually is to beat Dublin. But they proved in the drawn match that they can be beaten. So I think there's a lot to hope for there. And I think for Kerry, like those guys, the Cliffords and the O'Sheas, have come on so much in just the last month alone that
it augurs well for the future.
There's so much to be optimistic about. Yeah.
Finally, Donny, where's this book available?
It's in all the good bookstores. So Eason's and in all libraries and everything. So it's a great book for I don't think there's for the sports fan who, the sort of 8 to 14-year-old who just loves and lives and breathes sport, and like the Gooch would have been bringing their Gaelic football everywhere they go. It's a book for those kind of people who love sport, and so any place where you can find a book these days, you'll find it there, and also on the internet at the O'Brien Press website, o'brien.ie.
Great stuff, Donny. Thanks a million for coming on Terrace Talk this evening. I'm sure your book will be very popular amongst the GA fraternity. Thanks a million.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course, that's Donny Mahoney. He's a writer and a journalist. He's written a book about Cullum, the Gooch Cooper. Actually, Liam, he said there about diet and he said about Dublin. We talked about the access they have. You've got the facts there, the figures. We mentioned them another night on Terrace Talk. Yeah. What did Dublin get over the last number of years?
Since 07 to 18, they got 17.9 million.
17.9 million.
Kerry have 928,000. Now, if you go back to John O'Leary's little talk there about Dublin have been working the last 10 years, that's your budget, Tim. That's
a serious budget.
Frightening what they can do. They're professional. It's like you look at the everything is going for Dublin. They're playing at home. The Dublin boys didn't.
This is not sour grapes now.
This is not sour grapes. It's just the balance. It's just to balance it up. It's just that the Dublin players could have met up the last day in the hotel at 1 o'clock. They could nearly walk down to Crow Park. Everything is built down.
Has HQ or the hierarchy of the GA taken their eye off the ball as far as letting Dublin getting so advanced?
Well, I suppose, Tim, you're going to hear all this per cap, per person, and per all this kind of stuff. But they have the money that they can pump into these guys, and if a guy needs the special treatment, he's going to get it. If guys have to stay off work for a week or 2 weeks or whatever, they're going to be looked after. Like a typical example, you don't see the Dublin County Board above around O'Connell Street trying to sell tickets for a car to keep going.
And this is not defaming anything that we're
it's
doing.
Not sour grapes.
It's not sour grapes.
It's just it just shows that there is a gap there. There is a massive gap there in that side of it. And people can say what they want, that it doesn't matter. It does matter when you have them facilities, when you have that much money, and when you have that many coaches. Can you imagine if we had the coaches that Dublin had? No, and the GDAs down here doing a fantastic job job. But if they had the access,
could you imagine if John Kennedy had $500,000 outside with the SD club?
That's right. Yeah, but that's exactly it. And they're on about even the facilities. You go up to Dublin there, and you go to the colleges, and you go to all these places. The facilities are
serious.
Frightening.
There's a guff, as far as the money they've got, and they'll say there's 1.8
million or something like that.
So they're going to say they're extra clubs. We deserve that sort of money, but the money seems to be going to the right places for them.
Oh, it is, and they can dictate where it's going as well. So
yeah, definitely an imbalance. Tim, I totally agree with Donal as regards the Dublin team. They have everything on their doorstep. Professional in all but name. We should be proud of our young team, and that comes from our West Cork listeners. You have relations in West Cork, Donal. I'd like to thank the Kerry team and management. They gave us great enjoyment following the team around the country. I think we're very near to Dublin. It's our accuracy that has let us down. That comes from Mossy. Stop talking about strength and conditioning. We have brilliant facilities here in Kerry with the Centre of Excellence in Currans. Strength and conditioning does not help you kick the ball over the bar or into the back of the net. Dublin games management is in a different planet to ours, and that comes from a Fiery's die-hard supporters. What do you think of that, John?
Tim, if I may, you mentioned SD there. While I think of it, it was a proud day for us on Saturday.
Yes, it's brilliant.
For our Roisin Fogarty, she brought out the Sam Maguire, and talking about small clubs, what an achievement and what an honour for everybody and for her family and her mother Lorraine in particular, I suppose. A great club woman, great worker, and for all her family and for the club. We were delighted.
How are we going to keep that tradition, John? Because we just mentioned the word more, well, I've mentioned myself a couple of times tonight, professional, that at the top now it's gone to that level that, we're going to lose players from clubs into a county, and it's like Club Kerry then, and it's no fault of Kerry. That's the way things are if we have to compete.
It's definitely
going to happen. How? Because we've seen the demise of clubs in rugby, where we see Munster is a professional professional outfit even, and with that we've seen clubs. I think
Shannon and
all
these.
I had a number of ex-internationals from Munster on over the last 12 months, and they said it's been the demise of the clubs. The clubs are suffering. So the same thing could be happening with rural clubs or with clubs in general.
There's no doubt, Tim, and we've seen it ourselves. We've struggled over the last number of years. You keep the show going, and the pride in the area last weekend or during the week when it was revealed that she'd be doing it, the goodwill messages. I was speaking to the family and her mother Lorraine, all the texts and phone calls, and that's what it's about, rural Ireland, and we're no different than any other county. And I think, Tim, we mentioned about the hierarchy in Croke Park. We're lucky in Kerry. We have a great county board and led by Tim Murphy and Peter Twiss. They're working extremely hard and they have put great facilities in place, but at a cost. And the GDAs are doing brilliant work. Wouldn't we love to have a slice of that cake that Dublin got? But I think, listening to the people on Saturday, leaving the likes of Timplenoe to assist, leaving North Kerry,
probably home until 2:30 in the morning,
and going through the Adaires and the Abbey Fields, whereas Dublin walk down to Croke Park, they stroll down. That's not their problem. But to fix a game for 6 o'clock of a Saturday evening, do the guys in Croke Park, are they tuned into reality? Leaving the game at 9 o'clock and driving down to south and north and east and west Kerry, getting home in the early hours of the morning. That's not what it should be about. This game should have been on a Sunday. I don't care when it'll be played. It could be played next weekend. It's an injustice, and 'tis disrespectful to the supporters.
Have we sold ourselves out to TV?
I think we have. I think they're losing. Like, you go into Croke Park, Tim, it's a fantastic stadium and it's a fantastic facility, but it's a business. And that's what it is, and they have lost they have lost the touch with reality, and they'll give you this thing of, we're looking after, we're doing a survey. There's so many surveys done now, and is a survey going to bring in players to rural Ireland? It's not. But what have they done about it at the top? The county boards are working on it, but even the underage players, under 17s, can't play because the big counties and the big clubs decide no. But are they looking at the Valenches and the SDs and the Tosis who are struggling to get 15 out every week? They're not. And that's the grassroots. And Donal mentioned a while ago, and Denny, about the Paddy Sheas and about the Tommy Dials and the John Egan's. They came from the rural Kerry. And that's what made the GA. And the day we lose that, we lose our identity.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, John. We now take a break. You're very welcome back to Terrace Talk. Denny Long, before the break, a very passionate plea by a North Kerry man, former Kerry great, about how things have changed, how we can't forget rural Ireland or rural Kerry. But the comment prior to that was, strength and condition does not kick the ball over the bar.
Yeah, I suppose, Tim, there are an awful lot of people involved with teams now, and a lot of guys, I suppose they're earning a living out of it. I don't know much about it now. I'm not in that position, but strength and conditioning, of course, I suppose long ago fellas did physical work. I suppose most of the fellas playing Gaelic football and hurling now, I suppose they're working in office jobs and things like that, and obviously with science being brought in by a lot of people that this is the way to go. Of course the caller is right. All the great players, either in hurling or football, no matter how far back you go, they spent hours and hours and hours practicing down their own club field and kicking hundreds of balls or hitting it over the bar with a hurley or whatever. And that's the only way you'll be good at it. You can do all the strength and conditioning you like, and you can, great physique and everything. But if for every hour you spend in the gym, you'll probably want to spend 2 hours in the field.
Yeah, definitely. So those comments coming through to us. When the panel is selected for the year, let them select their captain by secret vote. I guarantee you that the best candidate would win out. And that comes from Bill Daly. Whoever is picked for captain may not be on the team every game, could be dropped. The club that wins the county championship should nominate 2 players for the county captaincy, 1 from the winning club and 1 by choice outside the club. Don't let spot on about the captain. Kerry players are closer than ye say. Well, Donal, that's still up for debate about the captaincy. Can Kerry stop the drive for 6? Or do we need another year or 2 to develop?
Well, in all fairness, I don't think it should be on Kerry's shoulders alone to drop the drive for 6. I mean, we can't be leaving Tyrone and Mayo and all these other teams off the hook. Just the one thing about the funding I want to go back to, if I can, is that when that survey was carried out, Dublin were first by a mile, okay? Kerry were only 16th.
That's all, yeah.
I mean, there's 14 counties between us and Dublin as well. I mean, so there's an awful lot of money disappearing down other rabbit holes, and they're not in an All-Ireland final. Can we stop the drive for 6? We have the talent. I think we're still lacking that bit of experience, and I suppose the one thing next year, which will be different if the Super 8 goes ahead, we'll probably end up in the same group as Dublin, as Leinster and Munster. So we're going to see Dublin a lot closer. It depends how Dublin fare in the league. If they're interested, we probably might see them as well. So I think we're going to have an awful lot of football played between now and next year's All-Ireland. But the one thing that people shouldn't lose is that we're in a much better off position this year than we were last year. And while we are close, it's still an awful long thing to say that we're the team that are going to stop Dublin. I think we will be in contention for it. We have the players. It depends if we can unearth a few extra players. But John is right. You can't walk off the field in the county championship game and walk in as a county player. It just doesn't happen anymore. And your caller about kicking the ball over the bar and strength and conditioning, he's right. You don't need strength and conditioning to kick a ball over the bar, but it certainly helps when you're going to get a shoulder off Dermot Connolly or some other big player along the way. So you have to be up to the physical battle as well. And I think the one thing about strength and conditioning is that when we get there, we will be able to finish out a game. We finished very poorly in those last 2 games. We didn't even venture up the field for 12 minutes in the previous game, and we only scored 2 points in the last 10 or 12 minutes in the last game. That's where strength and conditioning comes in. And until we get a panel of 26 players all on the same page, then we can challenge for an All-Ireland.
Yeah, definitely so. Well done to Dublin and our Kerry boys. I'm very disappointed at the way the game was played, though it was horrible football. At the 21st minute, Dublin held the ball for 4 minutes and just circulated the ball around like a game of basketball. The drive in football has been lost. No player seems to be able to go forward without having to turn about 40 times, and players seem to want to get rid of the ball as fast as they get it. Lads, I don't like the way the game has gone over the last couple of days. I've heard terms used like 2 teams going to war, battle in the trenches, military operation. The good old-fashioned football is gone, and it's for holding possession of the ball. Don't get me started. Hi, what's the story about marking your opponent closely? I think if Kerry marked Tither the last evening, it would be harder for Dublin to keep passing the ball to each other for ages. And that comes from Tom in Macroom. Liam Brosnan, I suppose it's county championship time. We said it's by the way, who's going to win the county championship?
Well, I was talking to Denny before it. Anyway, Denny from our Stacksman, he's tipping Kieran Zorral. He is, which is a big thing. I think it's going to be very open, Tim. You can't rule out Crokes again. If you put the Crokes boys down on paper and see the players that they named, they're frightening. I suppose divisional side, Donal's favourites are St. Kieran's, won't be too far away under Jimmy Kane. You have West Kerry with Eamon Hickson at the helm as well, and with Gaeltacht back into him. And I hear South Kerry are putting in a pile of work as well, and that's besides the teams, the Legions, the Dingles, the Stacks, even. So
who's going to win
it's going to be very open. I go for an outsider. I was agreeing with Denny. I think Raleigh would be an outside shot this year.
John Kelly, who's going to win the county championship?
Crokes are a very proud club, Tim, and they'll be probably hurting that they hadn't more players on the county set up for one reason or another. They'll be working away. They've had no kind of distractions in their build up to it. I think they'll be difficult to beat. But South Kerry, West Kerry, they could have a say in it also. But if I was a betting man, I'd be looking at the Crokes.
Denny Long, is it sticking with Cairns or Rallies?
Yeah, I have been fancying the Stacks, but they lost a very good player through a serious injury, Greg Horton, a key player, very close to the Kerry setup, dedicated, did his crochet a couple of years ago, did the second one in a challenge game a week ago. Dark horses, I think, obviously are Cairns or Rallies, but like John said there, Crokes, an awful lot of players very close to the Kerry level, probably feeling a bit hurt that they didn't have a couple more on. Now is their chance. They have a lot of good young fellas coming, young Burdens, Shaw and all these fellas, young Brosnan.
Serious outfit.
The chance is that now to go out and prove to the Kerry public, to the Kerry selectors and to Peter Keane that they're good enough, and they'll be very hard to beat because they have a very good club side.
Great stuff. Donal, you're going to stick with St. Kieran's. You said it, made it public throughout our land. It's even people over in Chicago and Boston, Sydney, Perth heard it.
Well, I was never one to make an easy decision anyway. 60-1 St. Kieran's to win it. I'll be honest with you, I plumped for St. Kieran's a couple of weeks ago. This was before the championship ever started. And the one thing was that there is no county player in the St. Kieran's setup. They have been playing away, training away. They're not losing players. They're not going to challenge games. They've got a great manager in Jimmy Keane. I was told they wouldn't beat Field Rangers in the preliminary round as well. They managed that as well, and they're at home Brosnan the following night. Maybe even Lee might ramble in the gate, have a look at them. I think
we'll be doing the gate.
We'll be doing the gate.
Great stuff. Lads, I want to thank you individually. We're running out of time. Liam Brosnan, absolutely brilliant again all season. I'm sure you'll be in it sometimes during the county championship. Likewise you, John Kennedy, passionate plea tonight. That'll be played back in years to come. Likewise Denny, you don't have to sit in the ditch, you can call it. You're a native of another county, absolutely brilliant all season. And Donal Barry, you're making a name for yourself, and the very best luck as well with the Kerry Sports Hub. Brilliant work. I've been using the link myself. Great stuff, and we'll see you around the county at different sporting events covering a lot of disciplines. We'll finish tonight on a very positive note. Of course, the homecoming was yesterday in Killarney, and Cathaoirleach of Killarney Municipal District, Michael Gleeson. Before I go to that, I want to thank Matthew Green, who was on sound tonight, Linda McAuliffe, the woman from Mill Street who helped us out here on Terrace Talk tonight. Likewise, Eamon Hickson, the man that's training. We was doing press-ups during the programme, getting ready for the Kinmare district team next weekend. I'm sure he'll perform like a captain. Is he captain? Is he leader? We have to wait and see. But now, listen to this, the audio of Michael Gleeson at that homecoming in Killarney yesterday afternoon.
Agrinuishla, Fatim Roiv, and Shaw Umranona. Tommy Balha, Con Ahantas Ahud, Agus Breachas Agawald, Lesnadina Ushla, and Shaw and Macul. Ladies and gentlemen, and especially girls and boys, I welcome you here this evening on behalf of all the people of the county. We gather to thank our players and management for their commitment to the green and gold of Kerry over the past year. We gather also to thank you, the loyal supporters who have followed the team throughout the country. The team has given to all of us rich and rewarding entertainment. We are, of course, gentlemen, a little disappointed that you did not win Sam yesterday, but you performed mightily twice in the effort to do so. Gavin, Paul and colleagues, it takes courage to pull on the county jersey to represent your county, and you have all shown that special courage. That is especially so on All Ireland Day, when 80,000 plus feast their eyes on your every move. Gentlemen, It also takes courage to step onto the stage this difficult evening. On behalf of all gathered here,